I'm still kind of gathering myself after that one because Chris Buescher just wins a very dramatic and eventful Daytona regular season finale. The driver that finished second was on fire and put it out himself, by the way. What? And one former NASCAR champ announces his retirement in Daytona today, while one has a very eerie hit in turn 4 that made me very uncomfortable. Another one flips multiple times down the back straightaway and is in a local area hospital. We'll get you the latest on Ryan Preece tonight. And oh, by the way, the 2023 NASCAR playoff grid is set. We have a lot to talk about tonight on Shifting Gears. I'm Alan Bailey, and before we could talk about all the craziness that happened in Daytona, make sure you mash that subscribe button so that you come on back for the next video, and log on to AmericanRacingNetwork.com for the latest motorsports news. ARN, the Motorsports Authority. I'm blown away. Chris Buescher wins the race. Let's just start there. We got to start somewhere in all this craziness. He leads an RFK 1-2. Brad Keselowski pushes Chris Buescher to the victory, with Brad Keselowski coming home second. Amazing. By the way, Brad, he had a fire happen in his car. Yeah, a lot of people on social media were talking about the fact that under the red flag, we saw him driving in circles down the back straightaway. A lot of people speculating online, what's he doing? And a lot of inappropriate jokes. And it turns out he had a fire somewhere up underneath. Perhaps those issues with tire rubber building up in the wheel wells of the Ford haven't 100% been fixed because something was smoking in the car, according to Brad, and he started doing those donuts, and after he was finished, it was out. It stopped being smoky. So can we acknowledge that I'm pretty sure this is the first time ever a NASCAR driver has actually put out his own fire without getting out of the car and without unstrapping? Yeah, pretty sure that's accurate. Blown away. Honestly, blown away that Brad did that it worked. That is something an owner-driver would do. And, oh, by the way, I don't think Brad Keselowski is ever going to win another NASCAR plate race. Let me explain. The guy pushed his car to the victory. That is 100% obvious. That is 100% clear. Does he make the move if that's his teammate and just his teammate and not the car he partially owns? I don't think so, but I think Brad, as an owner, knows this is what's best for the company. This is what's best for me. Because if Brad gets a victory, yes, that is awesome. Great for Brad. Great for that 6 team. They've been needing one to come to them for a long time. But Brad must know a lot of other guys have just one win. What's better, me getting a victory or my car, who already has 2 victories, getting that 3rd victory, boasting him up even further in the points? That's got to help Buescher honestly get out of the first round a little bit better, which I never thought was in question in the first place. But I think maybe that gets Buescher a little bit more of a bump so that if he doesn't win a race in the first 3, he's definitely locked in. That, I think, is more important to Brad than Brad going out there and making the next round. Going further in the playoffs is the goal now. And Brad had already been in that mindset coming into this because he knew he was locked in. So I don't necessarily see Brad making that move if he's not the owner of that car. He was definitely driving as an owner and not as a driver tonight. And while I get it, you have to do that when you're in Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin's shoes. Denny Hamlin, a lot of PR about him saying he would push Bubba Wallace to the victory over Ty Gibbs. A lot of fans jumping on him for that, which honestly, I agree with Denny. Am I going to push the car that I own, that I want to see in the postseason, or my team car that would maybe get in better with the boss? I have a much more financial investment in this than I do that. And that wasn't so much a Ty Gibbs slide on Hamlin's part. That was more of a, no, I own that car. I want to see him get in the postseason kind of thing. And I think Brad did something very similar here, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm simply pointing it out that if Brad Keselowski is around his teammate on the final lap of another plate race, I think he's 100% from now on going to push the other car to victory lane. Brad's now a team guy, and I pray we see him in victory lane again. I just wanted to see the move, and we didn't see the move, and that kind of bummed me out. The wild, eerie moment that we saw of the night had to have been on lap 96 when we saw Ryan Blaney get turned into the turn 4 wall. As somebody who's been a NASCAR fan since the mid-90s, that made me super uncomfortable. I was with family and we were doing stuff and I wasn't in front of a TV, so I'm watching on my phone with an earbud in, and people around me are talking and stuff, and that moment happened and I dropped my phone. I didn't even realize I did it. I froze because I saw that happen live in Daytona in 2001. And that made my heart stop. Yes, we have safer barriers. Yes, we have Hans devices. But that moment, just my whole world went blank for a second there. I thought we watched Ryan Blaney die. That's what I thought in that moment. That's the sheer terror I felt in my soul. And it took me a minute to collect myself. I picked up my phone and walked away and needed a moment. And my wife thought that there was like a death in the family or something. Not the case. It was death in the racing family, potentially. And somehow Ryan Blaney's okay. I pray that he's going to be okay, in the days coming, because, all that kind of adrenaline rushes out of your system in a day or so, and he's going to be feeling it for the next few days. I hope he's okay. I really do. And that's not to say anything bad about Ryan Preece. We're going to go ahead and talk about him and get you the latest update from Daytona a little bit later on, but let's talk about Blaney here. My God. I mean, it's the last lap of stage 2. They're going for it. I get it. Blaney's on the bottom. He's leading. On the high side, you have the Gibbs Toyotas of Ty Gibbs leading in the 54. You got the 20 of Bell behind him, and Bell is pushing his teammate. Bell knows that his teammate needs those stage points in order to potentially get into the postseason. And Bell's job as a teammate is to push his car, his teammate, his owner's grandson, into the postseason. Bell was doing nothing wrong. Honestly, we saw a bobble out of Gibbs on that high side. Junior called it on the broadcast, and he was 100% right. Looking at the replay, we see the 54 wiggle a little bit, and then the 20 car gets into him and gets him all the way around. So Gibbs was coming around. Just a thing. It was going to happen. He started coming down, turned up into Blaney, and Blaney goes head on in a stupidly not okay, eerie way, very similar to Earnhardt, and that made my heart stop. And there were other similarities from that night, or from that day, I should say, that were echoed tonight, which made me super uncomfortable. Tony Stewart in 2001 in the Daytona 500 flipped down the back straightaway. Yeah, we had another flip down the back straightaway tonight. Just the similarities honestly give me goosebumps, and watching the replays before taping this and getting all the information together, I was sitting there getting emotional and hyperventilating, because the last time we were in this position, we found out Dale Earnhardt died. And I pray that's not what's going to happen here, sincerely. But that gave me... I'm still uneasy because of it. And not okay. It's going to be an interesting 24 hours. But honestly, the wall deflected. That is the big thing. The big difference between tonight in 2023 versus what we saw in 2001 is the fact that we have safer walls. Not softer walls, safer walls. We saw on the replays in slow motion how much they deflected and absorbed that hit and then moved and flexed. That's what those walls are designed for. Blaney himself having a Hans device and having a better head and neck Hans system than was available in 2001, and a better cocoon around him with more safety features built into this car. Yes, this car is a handful and there might be some major safety issues with it, but it is light years ahead of where we were in 2001, especially because of the Hans and the softer walls, or the safer walls, I should say. See, it's easy to do. But with 5 to go, the big moment, Ryan Preece gets turned down the back straightaway, and it's on. And I haven't seen a violent flip. I don't think Daytona has seen a violent flip down the back straightaway like this. Maybe since Rusty. And that, I'm pretty sure, was at Dega. I want to say it was at Dega, but we haven't seen a flip this violent since Rusty flipped at a plate race. And I'm honestly trying to sit here and think of one. And yeah, the Elliott Sadler one was brought up But I'm going back further than that. I'm going back when Rusty tumbles end over end and sends dirt and debris flying. That was horrendous. And we look at all of these bad, violent flips. They all have one thing in common: grass, dirt. You see that Talladega especially has done a better job at paving that back straightaway in that area back there where there's just runoff area. And Daytona has done a better job at that as well. They've gotten a lot of it done. It's time to 100% pave all of that, guys. I'm talking to NASCAR. I'm talking to Speedway Motorsports. All plate tracks need to pave. No more grass. Paint it and make it look like grass. Put fake grass over it like you did in Charlotte. That's fine. But sincerely, when these cars land and they dig in is when the flipping and the violence starts and really keeps going. Let's not kid ourselves here. That car was going to flip. No doubt about it. It starts getting airborne before it gets into the grass. It's when it comes down and lands, instead of coming down and potentially skidding for a while, like we saw with the 21 car in Daytona when this car debuted, we saw it flip. It caught the grass, it caught the dirt, dug in, and because of how much energy was being dissipated by it, it sent the car up and over and it started barrel rolling like there was no tomorrow. They say it was 10. It feels like it was 500. Like, it was nuts. I mean, just watching Twitter/X blow up in that moment. Oh my God, please pray. No, just the reactions alone were stunning on social media. It was amazing. The car did come apart. That's the big thing. We saw parts and pieces flying off that car, especially in the engine bay, because it was so violent. And that's energy being dissipated. That is a great thing. But the thing that scared me is that the thing that caught was the driver net door area, but also the driver hatch, which is directly above the driver. That completely ripped off in like the first roll. And every single roll after that was throwing dirt, debris, God knows what else into that cockpit. And it was an exposed cockpit with a car violently flipping down the back straightaway. That has me concerned. These drivers have fire suits that protect them. Yes. These drivers have head socks and underwear, meaning shirts and things that are fireproof, that help them. They have helmets that are designed to take a hit, that are designed to stop objects, small objects that are coming in there at a high rate of speed. Same with the visor. That's why the visor's always down, guys. But God forbid if something got into that cockpit, what could have happened? We saw something similar with this at Talladega with the Larson hit. And I mean, I don't know, man. I think that NASCAR still needs to go back to the drawing board. I don't think these cars will ever be 100% safe, but I'll be damned if that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. We really, I think, need to put a better foot forward on trying to make these cars even safer. There's no such thing as too safe. I've seen what these cars can do. I've seen the damage that they do, and it's not okay. We need safer cars, and this car did take a step backwards in safety. It took, I think, a bigger step backwards than it needed to. And NASCAR, I know, is working tirelessly on it. And I know that they need to move faster, because they are. They have way put in more R&D numbers and time and people and resources and personnel into making this car safer, and they are working on it. And unfortunately, it takes time. This isn't like Earnhardt, and that's the thing I've been telling myself ever since I saw this crash, is we're not living in Earnhardt times. NASCAR in the early 2000s, pre-Dale's death, had their head in the sand, and before Daytona that year, we saw multiple deaths on the racetrack, 3 that happened at New Hampshire within months of each other, and that was not okay. NASCAR started getting their eyes open then, and they started the ball rolling then, but unfortunately, it was too late for Dale. And that's something that I know people at NASCAR have been haunted by for their entire lives. And I think they will, unfortunately, for their entire lives. Is it deserved? You can be the judge of that. I say no, because at the moment of Dale's death, they were actively trying to make these cars and these drivers safer. And NASCAR's doing the same thing now. I just pray that they find solutions, and enact them as soon as possible. And I can tell you that they are. And I can tell you that might not be quick enough, because right now Ryan Preece is in a hospital in Daytona, blocks away from the speedway, being held for observation. There is an update that came in at 2:20 a.m. local time, coming directly from Stewart-Haas Racing. Quote, NASCAR Cup Series driver Ryan Preece will remain overnight at Halifax Health Medical Center for continued observation. The driver of the number 41 Ford Mustang for Stewart-Haas Racing is awake, alert, and mobile, and has been communicating with family and friends. Preece will undergo further evaluation by medical personnel this morning. An update will be provided in the afternoon, unquote. On top of that, we got this tweet directly from Preece. Quote, if you want to be a race car driver, you better be tough. Damn it. Fast, race choice Ford Performance Mustang, I'm coming back. That honestly took the weight of the world off my shoulder, because I remember being a little boy in 2001, and I remember getting the news that day. And I remember thinking it was Tony Stewart that had passed, because Stewart's wreck was so violent. He flipped and ironically landed on his teammate Bobby Labonte. And I remember thinking Stewart was the one who was going to lose his life. And it was Dale. And I think anybody who goes to Daytona and sees these events play out in a single night will always have echoes of 2001. And I know exactly where I was. I was a kid literally playing at my grandparents' house in their yard in Downey, California. And someone, I believe it was my grandmother, came out of the house saying he died. And I said, what? And a neighbor who was out there said, yeah, that racer in Daytona, he died today. And my heart sank, thinking it was Tony. And it wasn't. It was Dale. And I remember as a kid calling my father, who had been a NASCAR lifer up into that point of his life. And I remember him getting angry at me because he thought I was lying. He thought I was making it up because he didn't want to believe it. And I didn't either. And I heard my mother react in the room behind him, all over the phone, and her screaming and her crying. And that will stay with me for a while. That'll stay with me for the rest of my life. That's one of those core NASCAR memories, and it's not a pleasant one. And I know everybody who was a fan in 01 has that memory. You know, for a lot of people, it was, where were you on 9/11? Where were you when this happened? Where were you when that happened? For NASCAR fans who were my age and older, it's, where were you when you heard about Dale? And I had a lot of those echoes tonight. And I'm still praying for Ryan, because let's be clear, he is still hospitalized at this hour. It is just past midnight here in California, so it's coming up on sunrise in Florida. And as soon as we have an update, it'll at least be on my Twitter, it'll be on our socials, but we will do a video on it and get you the latest if there is anything besides him being released. There will be an update. A couple of other things I want to talk about that happened tonight in Daytona. Bubba Wallace makes the postseason for the first time in his career. Yes, he has 2 other victories to his name, but those ironically came in the postseason, the final 10 races of the season, and didn't really lock him into the postseason. So we've seen it before with other drivers, and Bubba finally gets in on points, and that's a huge moment for him. That's cause for celebration there. It's the first time that 2311 puts 2 cars into the postseason in their existence. They're still very young existence. That is extremely, extremely big for them. The bigger milestone here that I'm sure is going to get covered by ESPN in about 4 days' time, but they'll still put the breaking news banner underneath you to make it feel like it's happening now, is that for the first time ever, an African-American driver has made the NASCAR Cup Series postseason. That is also huge. I love that Bubba is continuing to be the driver that breaks down these barriers. I hope that he continues to break them down. Where his career goes, I don't know, man. I can see him winning many, many, many races. He could be the next Mark Martin, the next Denny Hamlin, winning big races, but a championship always being elusive. Or he could go on a tear and go win a couple championships throughout his career. But I got to tell you, I'm absolutely loving the fact that I get to watch it. And I hope to get to continue to watch Bubba Wallace perform in the Cup Series for years, if not decades to come. Sincerely, congratulations to Bubba. Congratulations to everybody at 2311 and Toyota. It's a massive, massive milestone for them. And I think that this is the first of many for them. I really do. But on the flip side of that coin, a 2311 driver in Kurt Busch announced that he is retiring. That he has retired, I should say, from NASCAR Cup Series competition. This one also hit me hard. Kurt was very emotional in Daytona, and he has been very emotional since the Pocono crash. Rightfully so. He's still struggling. That's clear. He has yet to recover from his concussion. Not concussion-like symptoms. Concussion that he sustained at the Pocono qualifying effort last year. And I hate that is what took Kurt Busch, the driver, from us. I sincerely, absolutely despise it, hate it, and will never be okay with it. But that's racing. Every single day is a gift, and you honestly have to treat every single day like it is a gift. That's why it's called the present. And I know that's a cheesy line that a lot of you know from Kung Fu Panda, but it's actually from a very old piece of wisdom in, I believe it's Chinese literature. So, I mean, I live by that philosophy, especially after everything that I went through. So, I hate this. I interviewed Kurt Busch back in February of this year, 2023, or it was early March. Actually, it was, I think, the first week of March, actually. And he was holding back his emotions then. Like, I asked him about the potential of him getting back into a car, and I think he knew then that it wasn't going to happen, because he did get choked up. I do have that audio. You can go back on the channel and watch that video, and I think I'm going to link it in the description, because Kurt was never really okay, I don't think he ever will be 100%. I had heard those rumblings. I prayed that they were wrong. I prayed he would rally. I prayed that he would turn this around and start to be better and start to be like the old Kurt and be able to compete again. And I don't think we're ever going to see Kurt Busch behind the wheel of a race car ever again. I hate that I have to say that. I hate that that's the reality, but I think that's the reality that Kurt Busch fans need to face. And he's already said he's done in the Cup Series, and he didn't say NASCAR, he didn't say driving, he said Cup Series. So that leads me to believe that he is still trying to get back to maybe an Xfinity or a Truck Series car part-time at some point, maybe driving for his brother's team. I know Kyle would give him a ride in a second if Kurt was ready. I know Kyle would. Their relationship now is not what it was earlier on in both of their careers, but Kurt was emotional. We saw some really great tribute videos that came out already. The first time I interviewed Kurt Busch was in February of 2009. It's the first time I had ever been credentialed for a NASCAR race as a reporter when I was in college, and he was the first person I ever interviewed in the garage area of NASCAR, and he was so cool. He had no right or no reason to be that cool. I was a kid who were wearing a t-shirt from my college station with a college mic flag that was super bland and boring, and he giggled about it off mic and said something to the effect of, "Look at how professional he is. He's got a t-shirt. That's awesome." Like, he knew what it was. He knew I was a college kid just doing my first interviews, getting my feet wet, and he treated me with such respect and humility, and he was so cool, so personable. I became a Kurt Busch fan in that moment because he wasn't what people were saying of him. He wasn't what the fan perspective and perception was at the time. And I hate that he is hanging it up this way. I hate that that's over. I've interviewed Kurt over 100 times throughout my career by now, or close to it by now, and every single time, courteous, professional, friendly, outgoing, everything you want a NASCAR driver to be, anything you want your hero to be. They say don't meet your heroes, but Kurt Busch was one of those guys that you could meet and he would still be your hero. Honestly, Kurt's an amazing human being, and I wish him and his family all the best. I hope to see him. I see him at the racetrack constantly as it is, so it's not like we're not going to see him at the racetrack. I hope to see him in a car soon, in a driver's suit soon. But I don't believe that will happen anytime soon. I pray that I'm wrong, but I don't. But there's a lot to talk about. The fact that the first round of the playoffs kicks off in about 7 days from right now. Actually, it is 7 days from now, but a week from now, we're going to be talking about Darlington and all the craziness that is the opening round of the playoffs. But Darlington, Kansas, the Bristol night race, this first round is interesting to say the very least. We should get some phenomenal racing, because even when we go to Bristol and the racing's bad, it's still the Bristol night race and it's still really entertaining. Darlington's going to put on a show. Who's going to get out of Darlington and lock themselves in? Kansas is something that 2311 with Bubba and with Tyler really need to circle on their agenda. Bubba's really good at Kansas, and he could potentially win there and lock himself into round 2. The Bristol night race, Chris Buescher, can he make it for this season and win the Bristol night race again? He won it last year. Are we going to see Kevin Harvick show up to Darlington and really, really dominate the thing and lock himself into the next round, and potentially see Kevin Harvick's final Cup win come within the next 10 weeks? Or have we already seen Kevin Harvick's final Cup win come in his career? Let me know what you think in the comments right now. Let me know your picks for the Final Four in the comments right now, because we're going to talk about it in about 2 days with our playoff preview video, where we talk about every single one of the drivers, how far we think we're going to see them go in the postseason. I'm not going to make a playoff bracket, because I know after the first round it'll blow up, and I think everybody's playoff bracket blows up after the first round. I might do one, actually. Leave your I might do one. Let me know if you want to do them, because we'll do them and come up with some kind of cool prize. I don't know what that prize will be, but some kind of cool prize. So let me know in the comments down below about what you think of the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, about what we saw in Daytona, and do me a favor, if you watched until this part, drop a heart in the comments for Ryan, sincerely, because it was just mind-boggling. I'm still blown away by that. Drop a heart emoji in the comments right now for Ryan Preece, please, just to send some love his way, because my gosh, that was a hard hit. But want to thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. For Shifting Gears, I'm Alan Bailey. We'll see you at the track.